Welcome, my beautiful, wonderful listener, to the Talking About Talking podcast, where we talk about everything and anything, and we talk about talking about those things. Today, I am joined by Dawn Nelson. She is a 36-time published author, a screenplay writer, and was a participant on Netflix's hit TV series Outlast. Thank you for joining me, Dawn.
Thank you for having me.
Happy to. So, Dawn, a little bird told me that you were, and I mean, feel free to say move on if you would like to move on, but that you were dealing with some health stuff leading into being on this show that was not mentioned.
Yeah, no. What was it? 5.5 months prior to filming, I had found out back even a year further, I found out just during COVID that I had breast implant illness after I had implants put in from breast cancer. So they had been recalled for killing women. And so I happened to, lucky me, I had the ones that were killing people. So I had to have them removed. But with COVID, I couldn't get them removed. And so, yeah, it was ridiculous. And finally, I was able to get them removed the year that we went out and filmed. And so, yeah, I was cut literally from hip bone to hip bone and armpit to armpit. And so healing up from all of that, I had a full deep flap procedure, like 5.5 months before I went out there, which they're saying, don't do anything strenuous for 6 months after one of those.
Yeah, so much for don't do anything strenuous. So you actually had implants, and it was because you had breast cancer before?
Yeah, I had breast cancer 18 years ago.
Okay.
So I was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 5.5 months pregnant with my daughter.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And at the time I was like, I'm married, I have a kid. I don't even want anything in, but they're like, oh, you're only 25 years old. We probably should put something back in. And so I was like, they were the best, at the time they were the best. So I was like, okay, whatever, just do it. And
So I find that so interesting that you said like, oh, you got the ones that kill people. Are there ones that don't kill people? Are there?
I don't think so. If you put something foreign in your body, I think you're just lining yourself up to someday have it recalled.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. And what I find so interesting about this is that I have used this as an example because with the Talking About Talking podcast, one of the primary discussion points I make is changing of people's minds, like how people's minds change. I think it's a very interesting topic. And one of the things that I had changed my mind on that was pretty dramatic was breast implants, because I used to say that women should just get them if they're not already gifted, because I thought psychologically they're beneficial for, like, if you want to get a good job, if you want to get better tips at a job that you would get tips at, if you want to get treated nicer, like society's going to treat you better if you got bigger boobs. It's just typically how it goes. But
yeah,
it was more that probably 4 or 5 years ago, I started what you went through, that like breast implant poisoning. I started wising up to that and becoming aware of it. And I was kind of just going, oh, okay. Yeah, that's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not. And, and now they're telling us, well, every 8 years you have to have them, removed and redone. I'm like, why do I want to put something in myself that 8 years down the road I have to have another surgery? I mean, every time you go under any kind of anesthesia, any time of anything, you risk killing yourself. So why do I want anything that I have to go in and have another surgery or the chance of another surgery done? Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Of course, I'm very, like, this is a very passionate subject if you can't tell, because I'm like, I was never told anything. Mm-hmm. I was never told that the risks that went along with this. In fact, the surgeon who put mine in, she contacted me off the books and said, you're one of the ones that had these in, you need to have them removed, because she was a surgeon and she ended up not being able to, I guess she retired from her practice due to her own implant illness stuff.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So when you were getting them, she was like, oh, we should put them in, we should put something in. And that's weird to me. Like, we should put something in, like, if you were agnostic, or not, sorry, if you were apathetic to it as the patient, why was she so insistent that you had something?
Yeah, I don't know. Cause I was like, I don't know. The moment my boobs ever started growing as a kid, they were a curse from then on, because I couldn't fit through the cat door anymore. So if I'm flat, there's no big deal in my life. I mean, I'm married, I have children, I don't care. I mean, I live in sweatshirts, I live on a ranch. I mean, like, the cows really don't care if I look ergonomically correct or not.
Yeah.
And neither do I.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. You said you grew up in a town of 25 people?
Yes.
Yeah. See, I'm in a town of 4,500, and I tell people that, and they're like, wow, that's a small town. That's not a lot of people. 25 people's a family. That's not a town.
And you know what? And everybody knew everybody's business, and everybody had an opinion about everybody's business. And, you know, as lovely as it was to know everybody and everybody know, you know, if you had a party, everybody came at the same time, it really wasn't that wonderful.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. You go ahead.
You couldn't get away with anything, because if you tried to do something, or if you spun your tires out or anything, you know, going through town, everybody would be calling your parents.
Yeah. Well, you say everybody, 25 people, like that's
a lot of people.
It's not a lot of people.
25 people, it's crowded.
It's in a small room, maybe. Jesus. So you said you spent your childhood on a horse in the mountains.
I did, yeah.
And you were like 3 to 4 months in the wilderness by yourself. Can you elaborate on that? Like,
so as soon as summertime came, I was gone. Like, if I stayed home, my mom and dad both worked, as well as they ran the ranch. And so my parents were very like, we didn't owe anybody any money. We didn't, you know, you didn't do those kind of things. So like, it would be a hard work, and, you know, it's the epitome of every country singer's story. Okay, my childhood, you got a pair of shoes a year, you know, for winter time. You went barefoot, or I got hand-me-downs from my brother, or for like ever. My mom thought I was a size 8. You know, to this day, I'm still not a size 8 shoe. And my mom bought me size 8 shoes all the time through growing up. I tell her, she always told me I'd grow into them. I've yet to this day to grow into a size 8 shoe.
Wow.
Maybe. But yeah, so I took to the mountains. We were pretty poor. So my mom, I remember, like, I was wearing out the jeans because I'd get my brother's hand-me-down jeans. And so I was wearing the crotch out because I rode bareback all the time. And so the horse sweat and stuff kind of wears your jean material away. And so my mom, she took and she got the old flour bags and then the gunny sacks. And so she took a pair of gunny sack and cut them into pants for me, like knee-high pants, and sewed.
Sorry, gunny sacks are
like you carry potatoes and stuff in there.
Yeah.
So so she did that. And so I had a pair of gunny sack pants that I wore for 2 years straight. All summer I would wear those and go to the mountains, and we washed in the river. And, you know, I had a 30-30 that I carried everywhere with me from the time I was 9 years old, and we moved up to the ranch.
A 30-30?
A 30-30 rifle.
Oh, a gun. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm Canadian, so guns are not.
I was in Canada.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So, I just carried it. I had a old leather strap that I carried it on my back, and a knife in my pants, and away I'd go. And I spent the whole summer up there. Grandpa always seemed to be able to find me, but we had shacks and stuff that you could stay in, and there were old cabins. And then up across what we called Little Alaska, which actually was on the Canadian side of the border, there was an old mine shack up there. And the door was off and one window was broke, but you just prop something up against there. And my horse and I, we spent lots of time up there in the summertime.
So what would you eat?
Anything I shot.
Okay, so like this is where you got your survival skills then? Yeah,
from the time I was 9 years old. I mean, I was doing this. So, you know, and we live up on the range with the cows in the summer and stuff. And, you know, it was crazy because, like, people actually, other children didn't do this. I thought this was something every child did. And so I didn't think it was anything crazy that I did it until I got to see that other people didn't live like this. And then all my friends, you know, as I got older and all my friends kept wanting to come stay with me for the summer, they'd borrow a horse, and, you know, but their parents would get a little nervous if we were gone for more than a week at a time.
Oh, okay. But if you were gone for like 2 or 3 months, your parents didn't really care.
No, because occasionally I'd check in with them.
Oh, okay.
But I was wild. And that was like the one thing growing up that I miss. You know, I mean, like, girls nowadays, they say they're wild and it means they sleep around. Me, I was literally feral.
Means they sleep around. Oh, shots fired. Okay. So at the very beginning of the show, there was a bit where you said, I'm 100% or 110% going to win. 110% going to win. I feel like we're both aware that you didn't know what you were in for when you made that statement.
Yeah, but to this day, I'm still the only one who's never fired their flare. I mean, except for the winners, I've never fired my flare.
What do you mean you never fired your flare?
I never fired my flare in the whole entire show. I refuse to.
but you tapped out though. So
That's what the story goes.
how does that work? How did you tap out without firing your flare?
I actually refused to. I told him I wasn't ever going to fire my flare, and I didn't fire my flare. So
you're like, come pick me up. I'm not shooting it.
Yep. I was like, I refuse to shoot it.
All right.
I'm pretty sure production was like, just send her home.
If that's the hill you want to die on, I mean, I guess they're like, whatever. We'll just edit in another flare. That's fine.
That's what happened. Yeah. I mean, Joel did shoot the flare, and stuff, but yeah, I refused to because there was just some stuff that I felt wasn't fair. So I was like, and there's some stuff behind the scenes that nobody gets to really know what happened, and it made me mad that things were allowed to happen that happened out there to like Javier and stuff, and things were stopped. And so I think that's like, you can do anything you want to me, and I'll stand up and I'll fight someone, but when they start picking on other people, that's when I get really like. There was some behind the scenes stuff there that happened like at the end there that I was just like, nope, this isn't going to work, because if I'm out here, I'm going to fire a lit arrow into their camp.
Okay. I got so many questions about what you just said, but first, you and Paul had some friction between each other.
Yeah. We're two very different people.
That's exactly what he said, is you're very different people.
We're very different people.
Can you recall how that friction started?
I think it kind of happened from day one. I realized about halfway through our thing there, we were all sitting around the campfire and talking. And there was a part there, he said, they're going to remember me as being a dumb hillbilly. And I said, they may remember you as being a hillbilly, but they won't remember you as being dumb. And he didn't understand what I was saying when I said it that way. And, I get it. We're from two totally different types of the world, I mean, whether you like to put it or not, when you're raised up where I was, you don't talk like everybody else does. So, there was a lot of miscommunications between us. I think there was some things that I'm not used to the sensitive type of guys. So, like feelings got hurt. We're in a survival situation. And there was one part where I was like, we're surviving. Like, part of me wants to say, suck it up, Buttercup. But I realize I got to be more sensitive because we're in a, group thing. And he heard that and was like, you just want to say, suck it up, Buttercup to me. And I was like, you didn't hear the whole thing. I said, I have to be more sensitive. I'm working on me here. This is a me moment. But, I mean, I am pretty much, I'm going to say it how I see it. And Paul's a very nice, sensitive guy. And I don't deal with a lot of sensitive guys. I grew up in a man's world. My dad called me his right-hand man. You didn't cry. If you got kicked by a horse, if you got trampled by bulls, you didn't cry. You jumped up and you got out of the corral, and then you checked to see if anything was broken. And if it was broken, you bandaged yourself up so that we could get the job done. So.
Okay. What I find so interesting is that you both recall the same moment being the starting of the friction, because that is exactly what he said caused the friction to start. But what's interesting is he said it differently. So he remembers it differently, because the way you're explaining it is that it sounded like you were trying to say, like, they're not going to call you stupid, right?
Right. It was a compliment. Like, they may call you a hillbilly because he was talking about the way he spoke. And I said, may call you a hillbilly, but they won't call you dumb. Yeah. And he remembers it. I know, because we actually had this conversation out there, because he thought I called him a dumb hillbilly. And I was like, you called yourself that. I said, you're not dumb.
Yeah. The way he said it to me was that he said, I hope they don't call me a stupid hillbilly or put a title under me that is stupid hillbilly. And you said, well, that's what you are. And so that's how he remembers it, right? And I find it also interesting, because it's just, that's what this whole talking about talking thing is just the miscommunication is where conflict comes from, right? It comes from misunderstanding.
It is.
And you had no intention of hurting his feelings or being malicious towards him.
No. In fact, I never I never realized we really had a problem, because I had talked to Paul after that, because he got kind of mean out there to the point that I went off in the woods and had a good old fashioned cry. He was just being nasty. And so I just walked out in the woods by myself, and that's the way I do it. If somebody comes at me, that's just how I handle it. And and he probably never even knew the things that he said that hurt or offended, but I'm not a person to say, hey, you offended me. I'm not going to pull it out to his face, because we're in a survival situation. And I went into this, I think we also went into different mindsets. Like, to me, $250,000 is not life-changing money. $250,000 is something, it's a comfortable bonus, but it's not life-changing money. It's not like winning the lottery of $10 million or something that,
right.
$250,000 is a bill, sometimes a hospital bill for some people. Right. So, I went into this, the only thing I wanted out of it, if I won, is I was going to buy my husband a shop, because he has sat by my side in all of my, I think I'm almost 30 surgeries now. And he has sat at my side and changed tubes and everything else for all these surgeries. So that was what I was going to do. I didn't go out there to change our lives. And Paul went out there with, this money was going to change his family's life. And that's why I think it hit me so hard, that instead of coming to my face and saying, we're going to do something different, and I think I want to join a different team, he went the way he did. But, whatever. I really don't hold it against him. He played a game. The people out there that I really have an issue with are the people who just were evil.
Yeah. And we'll get into that. I don't know. I should have asked you at the beginning how much time you have, but if there's any point that you want to cut this off, you let me know, okay?
Yeah, you're plugged into my thing, so
awesome.
We're at full back.
Solid. So with him transitioning to the other team, did you know that, like, you had a conversation about talking, I think you were talking to Joel, you might have been talking to Jordan too, about telling Team Charlie that Paul was leaving or something like that? No, you don't recall that? Paul was talking about something like that. Then when you went to, because there was a moment where you went over to Team Charlie and you were asking them to take on you and Joel.
Joel and I went over because we realized Paul was leaving. Paul had kind of said something about if Jordan didn't come back, he was gone.
So Joel told you that because Paul told Joel that.
Paul told Joel that?
Yeah. Because
Paul actually, Joel and I started talking, and we knew that, we had already got the idea that he was gone.
Yeah.
If Jordan left. And so that's why we were going to maybe we should join with Charlie. And, if nothing else, that way all of us have to go over. Maybe all three of us end up over there instead of just one of us.
So, I don't think a team can take on three people if they have three, though, right?
They couldn't take on two either.
No, they could only be a team of four.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it was just, it was Joel and I. We knew if Jordan left, and that was part of the tears, because I knew our team was over at that point. And that's why you see me go to Paul. We can work through this. We can fix, I told him right there, we can work through this. We can fix this. Because I knew at that point that he was mad at me and I was mad at him. So we had both had words and we had walked out on each other. So
yeah. Do you think maybe if you guys tried to resolve that before Jordan left, that it might have gone differently?
No, because I think Paul's mind was made up.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
If you want my honest opinion, I think his mind was made up, and I think if Jordan was his buddy and he I don't want to get into a bashing Paul thing. Honestly, I don't really want to get to bashing Paul, because Paul played the game the way Paul wanted to play the game.
Yeah.
Would I have stalked off and through the woods and done it the way he did it? No. I would have said, hey guys, this isn't working out for me. I'm out of here. And I would have walked out, that way.
So then,
and I think if he would have done that, I think we would have been like, okay, we need to either talk, or at that point we would have been like, okay, well, he was mad enough to say it to our faces. So
I do want to, if it's okay with you, I do want to challenge you on that just a little bit, because technically you were you were going over to Charlie to ask them to take you and Joel on before you were hoping to kind of get in before Paul got out, right? So then isn't that kind of making an attempt at the same thing that he did?
We were hoping to secure a spot where all of us went, or Joel and I could join if Paul didn't want to, because Paul had already said he wasn't going to join.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wasn't going to stay with us. And so that's why we were like, if Jordan left. And so that's why I said, we need to talk to him. And that was before Jordan, we even knew Jordan wasn't coming back. We just talked to him and said, hey, we've heard that Jordan, Jordan's out. Jordan may not come back. Are you guys interested?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we are, but we can't take on two. So
that moment that you were having that conversation with Charlie, did you know that Paul was like 40 feet away and listening in on your conversation?
No.
Yeah, he was in the bush, kind of behind Team Charlie, overhearing your conversation while you were talking to them.
Yeah.
Just thought that was interesting. I wondered if he had told you or if someone had told you afterwards. So Joel told you that Paul was going to leave after Paul had told Joel that.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, and you were already fully aware that he was going to go. I'm just kind of going through my questions here.
Yeah, I already knew because Paul and I had a kind of a argument. We had an argument, I think it was that morning. And that's when I had by myself. And I was like, I can't stay on the same team with Paul. I don't think I can. I'm like, there's just some things that he'd said that just was kind of sexist. And I was like, you know what? I don't play these games.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
yeah, there was a moment where you were, what did you say? You're talking about him going to cut wood because he was Paul Bunyan or something like that.
Yep.
So is it not a useful job to go cut wood? Like, is that not something you need?
Here's the thing. So that probably nobody else talks about. The day that Joel passed out back there,
Jordan.
We had already known Joel was, we had gotten red meat and we were doing really good. And so Jordan and Paul were wearing low on protein. And we had said, Joel and I are going to go get mussels. We're going to go fishing. We want a fishing challenge. So I said, I've been in camp getting firewood the whole entire time. So and you guys have been out hunting. So why don't we swap and let me go fishing? Joel and I'll go fishing instead of Joel and I watching the camp all the time. And you guys can just stay here and relax. Jordan just needs to relax. He needs to catch up on sleep. He needs to just eat. That's all he needs to do today is just eat. Mm-hmm. And then we get back and they're out hunting and they're out doing this and they're out doing that. And it's like, you're supposed to just be letting him rest or we're going to lose him. He's going to pass out. He's going to fall out of the game. Mm-hmm. And that's where, Paul and I had a big conversation about that because I wanted them to stop wearing themselves out. You're not going to shoot a deer out there with 6 cameramen following you and running ahead of you. It's just not happening.
So you kind of saw that coming, that whole incident with Jordan kind of going out.
And, and Joel and I had talked about it and I had said, survival is a lazy man's game. You get your stuff that you need. And we were collecting small wood and small this and small that. We had started letting the fire go out at night and just restocking it in the morning so somebody didn't have to stay up all night with it, which, burned a lot of calories staying up and staying with it. Well, and we were all taking turns through the night.
Yeah, so I'm really seeing how kind of spot on you are with that statement that is survival's a lazy man's game. I'm catching up on Alone. I'm sure you've heard that show mentioned a whole bunch, and I'm watching season 9 and there's been 2 participants so far, spoiler alert, that spent way too much work on shelter, like just burn themselves at both ends, making far too elaborate of a shelter, and they had to go out because they were literally killing themselves working too hard.
Yeah. And that's why, we kept saying about Jordan. And, even when Jordan said, when he did a live Instagram with us, he even said, you were always telling me to slow down. You were always telling me to pace myself. And I was always telling him to slow down because I knew he's young and he's exuberant and he wants to be in front of the camera. And, he just had this energy that you just wanted to okay, let's bottle it up.
Yeah.
Let's package it so we can use a little at a time. So yeah, but and Paul fed into it, and that was one of my biggest that was one of my biggest qualms with Paul, was he wasn't just calming down. Paul has the same thing. He's going. He's a mover. He's a great guy. I'm not going to say he's not a good guy. I am sure out in real life, he's probably a fabulous guy. Because when we first teamed up, I absolutely loved him. I mean, he was just a wealth of knowledge, and he was an easygoing guy. And you know, he had divulged some stuff to us about, you know, he's kind of sensitive about certain things, and we had tried to stay away from certain topics, you know, and I thought we did pretty good. But, you know, we also, you know, I've never held the secret that if my mouth don't say it, my face will. Yeah. So, I mean, like, I'm an open book. If I think somebody's a dick, it's probably written across here if it already hasn't come out my mouth.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, in all fairness, he didn't have anything negative to say about you either. So it's good that you're kind of both in a mutual understanding with that.
Yeah, and I know we're two totally different people. And you know, you walk into something like this and you bring your skills in, and you bring your life lessons, and you bring, you know, this kind of stuff. Paul's from the southern area. I'm from the north. I'm from right on the Canadian border. You know, Alaska wasn't that far of a stretch for survival. For him, though, you know, these people are used to the humidity, and they're used to the warmth and stuff like that. That's a huge shock to their system, too. I mean, like, I knew watching some of them out there, you know, and we had even talked about in the very beginning, you know, who's going to lose the most weight are going to be people from the South, because you're not used to, you know, the climate.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because there's probably some sort of physiological systems that run to heat your body when it's cold that are going to become more well adapted to cold and become more efficient. That's probably a good point. I don't have it like available, but I would bet you that there would be an interesting study to be done, like people that live in colder climates and how efficiently they warm their bodies from the inside out, like how calorie efficient their body is, right?
Because I know, like, if I go buy a horse or something from the Midwest, I have to acclimate it to my weather. If I go buy a horse from the South, I have to acclimate it to my weather. I mean, you can't just go dump it out in a snowstorm. You can't just go dump it out in 40-degree temperature with no humidity. They don't do well. They get sick. You know, I mean, I'm thinking of cattle lines, but I figure, you know, it can't be that much different. People aren't terrible difference. Just we talk a lot more.
So you're treating your team like cattle, that's what you're saying.
Very well registered cattle.
Yeah. Okay, good. There was, when you learned that Paul had left for Charlie and you and Joel went after him, did you have an agenda, or were you just blowing off steam?
I was blowing off steam.
Okay.
I was pissed. I was just like, you little weasel. Like,
yeah.
You sneak away and not even do the proper thing of telling me that you're leaving. I mean, like, please be a man and say it to my face.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. So the stealing of the sleeping bags. I mean, Obviously we got to talk about that. Did that happen the day after Paul switched?
I believe it was a couple days after.
It was only like a couple days after. Damn, that's got to be insult to injury there.
You know, I think the funniest part is Joel and I literally thought production had a hand in it. And to this day, you still can't tell me that production doesn't know about it and that they didn't have a hand in it. So...
What? Okay, hang on. I gotta. All right, we'll just go into that.
We actually stole the cameras. Like, they show you that we went and we hijacked their cameras. Yeah. We're like, we're confiscating your cameras to look at. Joel and I are like, you know, we're taking your cameras and we're gonna like go through them. And then that's how we found, you know, Justin. And so, yeah. And then you hear me, you swear you don't know anything about this, because we were out front. They showed us we were out front of our fort.
Yeah.
And the production crew was like, walk 10 steps slow, look this way, look that way. These are going to be some shots that we're going to use for something else. And then we get back to our camp and this is what happens. And we're like, what the hell? You just had us out in front of the camp doing all these like stupid little slow motion. Look over here. And now our sleeping bags are gone. Oh, bullshit. So
what?
we were like, I think what they don't show you is like there was a lot of anger on the way down there. When we found the tent, the raft, because Joel and I are like, we tracked that sucker through the woods. I mean, like 100%, we tracked that son of a gun through the woods. We had him down there, and we were told, "Yeah, you guys are out of bounds. Come on back." And I was like, you could see his cameraman right there, and we're like, they're like, "You're out of bounds. You need to go, Don. You're jumping on a boat." Yeah,
You're out of bounds.
yeah, because there's somebody's cabin over down that way, and so we weren't allowed, within so many feet of the cabin.
Okay. So what you're saying is that, first of all, during the raid of your camp, the production crew was basically slow rolling you with.
Yeah, we were out in front doing some kind of a walk this way, turn this way type of thing out in front. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm guessing it was
from our camp.
I'm guessing it was a bunch of footage that they never even used.
Yeah.
And so then you get back and you had been ransacked. And then when you're chasing down Justin.
Well, first of all, we thought it had to be Charlie Camp because we were told nobody else had a valuable raft.
Yeah.
So we thought for sure it had to be Charlie Camp. So then we ran down there, and that wasn't too long after Paul had left.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought, well, it just goes to show it has to be them. And if it's them, then we're going to get our shit back. And so, like, we went down there, and then you could tell by Angie and Nick and stuff and Seth.
Well, even Paul's reaction, they were just like, whoa.
I mean, they were like, oh, she's pissed. It's like, yeah. So yeah, we found out it wasn't obviously Charlie Camp, and then they had to go on the alert too. Had I known now, or then what I know now, I would have grabbed Charlie Camp, and I would have brought the whole camp with us, and we would have tracked him down as one girl.
Yeah, and they probably would have been game for that because they wouldn't want thieves on their show either.
And if they would have allowed us to continue, because I had his tracks going into the tree there, and I was following him, and I saw his cameraman, and then they pulled us out, and I said, well, he doesn't have our sleeping bag, so let's go back and find him because he probably dumped them somewhere. So, and then but what they also don't tell you is my wool gloves were in there, my wool socks were in there, so the next we survived, I think we were out there 3 or 4 nights after that. And so that night I had to go out to a different island, and that's where I met up with Brian. And then I told Brian, I said, I'm not leaving Joel alone. I'm like, I've got to go back. My partner is alone and he has nothing. We both have pieces of tarp to sleep with. So I'm like, I'm going back to my partner. So I found one of the producers and finagled them and said, you know what, I'm not staying out here. If you guys have to let me go back to Joel because now we're in true survival mode. So they went ahead and let me get back on the boat and took me back to Joel. And so Joel and I had to hunker in for the night. And that night,
I'm sorry, I want to let you keep going. I'm just not following. You went on a boat to an island?
Yeah. This is one of the challenges that they didn't. There was quite a few challenges that you never got to see.
Okay.
But
so just one competitor went to an island?
Off of each team, yeah.
Oh, okay. And so you were on an island with just Brian?
No, Brian and Jill and Paul were all there.
Oh, okay. And what was that challenge?
I think it was a deer hunting one.
Oh, and
I don't remember.
You were just shooting pretend deers?
We were it was supposed to be somewhere where they knew there were some deer that maybe we could get something. I think it was one of their challenges that didn't end up, nothing really good happened out there. So.
Oh, okay. It's just a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah. Huh. So yeah, I jumped back on the boat. I mean, one of my big regrets is I didn't get to talk to Brian too much before I left, because once the producer came, I said, hey, I'm not staying here. You guys can't make me. I'll literally swim if I have to.
Yeah.
So they went ahead and let me go back to Joel. And then we got back there and we made up a tent for the night. And we were both so mad that night because we were pretty sure we had been duped by production. And then the next day we got to learn that, supposedly production knew nothing about it. And so we were told it was something he had done on his own, which now watching the show, bullshit.
So why is that bullshit since watching the show?
If you look, there's a boat right beside him.
There's a boat right beside who?
Justin, when you swim in the river, there's a boat right beside him.
So you can see that Like,
you can see the shadow of the boat. This is me and my investigation skills.
okay, but isn't that just like part of the camera people watching him at all times?
Yeah, but we were told like nobody even knew about it. It was something he did entirely on his own, is what we were told. So that's why we took the camera footage,
Oh,
because we were told nobody knew about it.
so like,
So
so the production was telling you that they didn't even know
I'm
that it
pretty
was coming?
yeah, and I'm pretty sure actually production might not have, because production wasn't even on the island at that time. But I think some of the other crews knew he was on his way over. And I think that's how come we were pulled out of the tent to do our little walkabout in front.
Oh, so you guys weren't like, not only were you slowed down with these odd camera requests, but you were pulled from your camp.
Yeah, we were pulled from the camp to do these
Con-
videoing.
Conveniently at the time that Justin was coming to steal your
Yeah.
stuff.
That's why we were so angry before we left. I mean, that's one of the things that got us so mad. Joel and I both. That was one of the things that really like made us mad. We're like, we feel like this has just been put against us. Like, here, you guys have already like had a blow. Now let's hit you with another blow. And and then like the second night that Joel and I were alone, Joel had went over to see Happy Air, and he had ended up falling in the river. And so he got back to the camp, he was sopping wet, and it was dark. And so I had gotten the fire all built up, but he had to get out of most of his clothes. He kept on his wool underlayer. So I had given him my second set of my overgear. And so that night I woke up about 1:00 in the morning. It had dipped down into the freezing temperatures. And yeah, I was sopping wet and shaking. I couldn't stop shaking. And so, yeah, I was so cold that night.
So why were you wet?
Because it was wet and frozen.
Okay.
So like, you just get saturated. That's why I slept with our rain gear on. So yeah. And then, so everything was I was so cold. I had never shook so much in my whole entire life as I did that night.
Jesus.
So then the next day you actually see us, because that's the night, like, you actually see me like tucking Joel into bed, like with rocks and stuff.
Yeah.
I guarantee you I didn't tuck Joel into bed every night.
That's okay. That'd be kind. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yes.
So early on in the show, I think it was about crab pots. You were actually the first participant to mention stealing.
I was.
What was
because they had 3 crab pots. They had, if you noticed in the show, Angie got 3 crab pots.
Yeah.
So one of those was supposed to be our crab pot that was left on the island. And so when Paul was going to go exchange firewood cutting to him and work in exchange for a crab pot. And I'm like, no, you can't go wear yourself out for another team. That's ridiculous. Like, why don't we just go take one of the 3 crab pots once they're planted out in the thing? I mean, you can just take a couple crab out of it and you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
We're not starving them. I'm not taking all their food. They have 3 crab pots. And, at that point, their raft wasn't even working. So we had already talked to Angie a little bit about, if she could use our raft. And I was like, just go take one of their crab pots. I mean, they got 3 and nobody else has any. So, and we have extra food because everybody got, I think at that point, we actually got the food in the challenge bag. So.
You got food in a challenge bag?
The crab bait food
stuff.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
The orange boxes.
Yeah.
I think those came in the challenge bag.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So you got called off of your pursuit of Justin. You saw the cameraman that was looking at him.
I saw Justin's cameraman. Yeah.
And then they shouted at you and called you back.
Yeah.
That's brutal because it's like, it makes it, it's so funny because I remember watching the show and seeing the makeshift ghillie suit he made and thinking, okay, that's ridiculous. And then it shows that you kind of came close to him, but then didn't see him. And then I was like, oh, wow, I guess his ghillie suit actually really did work. Meanwhile, the cameraman told you not to keep going.
But it made him look good. So you know what? I like Justin. Justin's a good guy. I've met him afterwards. One thing I will say about Justin is funny as heck.
Oh, yeah?
And he takes being a villain to a whole, awesome level. Like he's actually pretty cool. I mean, like he's a good guy. I think in the long run, I really think Justin probably, we were going to try to steal him if we found him. Because when I was leaving on the boat, I saw him sitting over there with our sleeping bags, and I tried to get him to roll the boat over, but they wouldn't because they were afraid I was going to shoot him with an arrow. But I wasn't going to. I was going to ask him if he just I was going to give him the ultimatum of he either gave us back our sleeping bags and swam back to his group, or he joined our group. And they wouldn't let me. So I was like,
that would have been an interesting turn of events to see. And that, I guess that brings me to that question. I was going to ask you, if you had have actually caught Justin, how do you think that would have went down? But that's what you would have done. You would have.
That's what we wanted to do, is we were going to make him either we'll make him strip naked and swim off, or he can join us.
Yeah. You maybe would have asked him to join you while you had your hands around his neck. Maybe that's how it would have went.
You know what? I talk a big game, but I'm not going to get physical. I was a corrections officer for many years. I mean, I'll take him down and put handcuffs on him, but other than that, I don't want to touch him.
That's fair. I love hearing that you think that Justin's such a good guy, and I've heard good things from the other people about Justin as well. And so I'll ask you the same question I asked them. Do you think if Justin started on a different team, would he have stolen anything?
I don't think so. I think if Justin would have started on a different team, I think Justin would have melted into that team and been a huge valuable asset to whatever team he was on. That's what I honestly believe with Justin. But honestly, to tell the truth, I think Amber's a little bit like that too. I think Amber could have been on a team that was good, and I think she would have molded to be good. I think she just got with Jill, and I don't know, I guess, their heads went 360 around and they decided to be the demons.
Yeah, the demons. Yeah, that's what Javier calls them, the demon squad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that hilarious. So looking back, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, even after the show,
yeah,
you're not helping yourself.
Yeah, I haven't looked into too much. I am trying to get Jill on because I do want to have this conversation with her as well, just to get her side of things. I think that would be very interesting at the very least. But yeah,
you might lose a lot of followers.
That's okay. I'm looking forward with this whole podcast thing. It's just a hobby. I'm at my gym right now. I own a gym. That's my primary income. And so this whole talking about talking thing, I want to, I guess, platform anyone and everyone. I want to talk to all kinds of people. Even if I don't agree with them, I want to talk to them.
Yeah, so. Little Joe Rogan there, right?
Sure. Yeah, maybe someday. That would be cool. The popping of the raft. So you pop their inner tubes. Looking back on that, do you think you would have been better off taking it and trying to use it for leverage or something? Or do you think just getting the gas out of...
At each other, and I gave him the countdown, and we were going to pop it.
Yeah, probably.
At that point, it just it was the only way I could take out any frustration of what happened.
Yeah, I think you did say something like, oh, that felt good, or something like that. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. It was really satisfying to hear that.
Yeah, like the steam leaving your head.
I'm pretty sure I was shooting flares out of my ears after that. I mean, because we were just we know he's here. Why don't you guys let us go in there? No, Dawn. Go, Dawn. Go.
And they were just like, no, go home. It's all over.
Day, one of the cameramen came to me and they're like, I have never seen anybody track somebody like that. It was actually kind of scary how you tracked him down through those woods. We couldn't see what you were looking at, and you were exactly where he went. I was like, guys, that's what I do.
You track people?
I've been a tracker my whole life. I go in and help when people are missing and stuff. I help a lot with tracking and stuff. I mean,
how did you get into that?
Just, I've always been good at tracking and trapping and everything else. So that's just something that a few years ago we found a guy, by tracking him, and yeah.
So you said they, who's they? Who calls you in for tracking work?
Sheriff's Department, families of missing people, things like that.
I mean, there's 25 people. How many missing people can there be?
No, I don't live there anymore.
I know. I was just being funny.
We go all over.
That's awesome.
it's a group of ranchers and stuff that we get together, and yeah, I've helped track. And if I mean, it's just a group of people who actually know how to track. I mean, I've tracked my whole life growing up in the mountains. You almost have to know how to track.
Okay, hold on.
So
Now you're saying it's a group of people. So there's this like group of like
ranchers and horse people.
ranchers that are
Yep.
hired by police departments.
Not hired. We're just asked to come in and help.
Commissioned?
We're just asked if we can come help because we're good at what we do.
And you guys don't get paid for it.
We're just a volunteer group.
A volunteer group of ranchers.
Yeah, ranchers, horseback riders.
It sounds like a group of like vigilantes or something, like a group of.
Oh, we usually try to find people who are missing, or people who have gone missing, or people who have committed suicide. And maybe, their families are looking for them up in the mountains and stuff. It's just what we do.
That's so interesting. Okay. Do you guys have like a name? Like, you're not an organization, you're just a group. Do you have a Facebook group? How the hell does that work? They have like your list of emails?
No, well, the sheriff's department knows how to get a hold of us if they need us. And the sheriff has a posse group that a lot of times, if they get something they can't get, they'll call us in after the posse's already looked, and we'll come in and see if we can recover what we're looking for.
That is fascinating. Okay, cool. So back to the show. When you commandeered the camera equipment, what was the reaction of the crew?
I don't think they knew how to take it. I literally think they just like, this is happening. And Joel's such a great guy. Like, he's so like, he's just like my brother. I mean, like, him and I, we just hit it off as like brother and sister out there. So like, he's so articulate and he's so refined. And so for him to be like, let's commandeer the cameras, it was.
So that was Joel's idea.
That was Joel's idea. And it was like, it's right, I'm wearing it on you.
Nice. That's awesome. And I'm sure the camera crew was just seeing how fired up you guys were, and they were just like, angry, hungry people. Let's just not.
But like, the funny thing is like, I don't remember being hungry out there. Like, I actually ate really well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like the mussels and the sea asparagus, and we ate wild cranberries, and I made oatmeal while I was out there with some of the seeds. I took seeds out of a lot of the plants and stuff. Yeah, we actually ate really well.
How the hell did you make oatmeal?
So like, I cut down a lot of the tall grasses and stuff. There was a lot of wild rye and stuff like that out there. So I just put it over the fire and let it dry out, and then take it and I just ground it up into oatmeal. So like, when we did our raft trip, I made oatmeal right before we left, and then everybody had some so that we had some energy.
Interesting.
And I took one of the other things you don't get to see in the show is I actually took the underwire out of my bra and made a fishing hook.
Oh, really? That's super clever. And that was going to be my other question, is what other kind of like survival type things, because you get that a lot on the show Alone, right? Survival, bushcraft type stuff. This turned into more of a social experiment, a drama reality show with a survival setting. Whether you say that's fortunate or unfortunate, I guess depends on which perspective you want to take on that. But it is what it is.
I think the drama thing paid off well for him, because I think it's going to get him a season 2.
Yeah.
As the cast members who were actually there to do a survival show, I think the first few weeks were amazing, and then it turned into a drama infused
Shit show.
Yeah. Thank you. That's perfect words.
Yeah. It was a shit show.
But I didn't know.
Yeah. So what else did you do? You made oatmeal, you made a fish hook. Was there anything else that happened that was a little more fun, survival, interesting, something like that wasn't shown on camera?
Joel and I made a water filtration system with the mussels, and so like the different water had come through, and the mussels help purify the water for us.
What?
And then we cut the inner lining out of my Wind Rider bibs, like that comes with like a netting on the inside. So we cut the netting out, and we made like a filter system. And so like, it kept the water clean in our bag for us. So
how the hell does that work with mussels for a filter?
Mussels actually will filter your water for them. They'll clean your water for you.
How?
So, because if you leave them in there, they take everything they can clean out. So they'll eat everything.
Oh,
so
interesting.
it works out really, really well. It worked out really well. I mean, like our water was clean at the bottom. Like you'd literally put the mussels in and you put the thing in. So like everything would settle down to the mussels and the mussels would eat things and move around. And the top of the water was super, super clean.
That's so neat.
So, and then we found that you could drink the water straight out of, there were like these,
Well,
sorry,
there we go. It's all good.
So there was these deep holes out along the riverbanks. And so when the water would come up and they'd go back down with the rain and stuff, the grass would filter the water. So the salt would be out. So what you'd be left with in these pools are clear, cold drinking water. So you could literally take your cup and walk up to these pools and drink water out of it. So,
I mean, don't tell Andrea that.
You know, and that's cruddy too, because she didn't drink water that made her sick. You know, I don't know if you've talked to her yet, but you probably should talk to her too. She didn't drink the water. I mean, like the water where she was drinking actually was clean. So,
How did she end up sick?
I think she came in with absolutely no body fat. I mean, she's a very muscled up woman and she came in with no body fat. And then I don't know what they were eating for food those first few nights. So it probably just extremely didn't settle with her.
So you don't think it was that drinking of the water?
I don't think it was the drinking of the water, because we drank that water the whole entire time we were there. I mean, granted, I grew up on creek water. Maybe I'm immune to it.
Yeah.
Just moved the cow snot aside at the top of the trough and drank.
Wow. I mean, Jesus, that's nothing compared to freaking Javier talking to me about eating roadkill. So
I eat roadkill too.
Great. It sounds like I've got the eating roadkill bunch of people on my podcast so far.
You do.
Yeah. Good. Awesome.
Did Paul tell you about eating roadkill as well?
No, I didn't ask Paul about eating roadkill. I'm sure he's eating roadkill too. You people. I haven't really hunted yet. I got my hunting license this year and my gun license this year for the first time. So this upcoming deer season is going to be my first attempt.
Nice. Well, good luck.
Thanks.
I don't hunt deer anymore. I hunt, like back here on my wall, you can see my cougar. Wow. I hunt cougars and I hunt bears. I hunt things that hunt me. I'm not much of a, I don't do the herbivores anymore.
What does cougar taste like?
Oh, it's amazing. It's probably the best meat I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
You would think, is it like tough?
No, it's super tender and it's pale. So it's really good.
Really?
Yeah.
It's the other white meat.
Yes. It is way better than chicken.
Interesting. Cougar. Wow.
It's just they're a little harder to farm than a chicken.
Yeah, I'm sure they would be a little more difficult to farm.
Right?
Might be some collateral damage if you tried to have a cougar farm.
Yeah, and you know, the walking in and helping them foal or kitten out or something wouldn't be a good idea.
No. And so when you're hunting a cougar, like cougars will watch you and be ready to jump on you and rip your neck out of your body, and you won't know they're there.
Yep. I was chased by when I was 13.
How did that go?
I'm still here.
Yeah.
And it's right there.
That's the same one?
No, this is actually a different one. The other one,
oh, okay.
It fell down and hurt itself and couldn't get back up.
What?
It was back before it actually tried to. It came out of the tree and ended up right. It missed me and my horse. I was running through the pasture up by the house, and it was sitting up on the branch of a tree, and I hadn't seen it. And my horse and I ran under, and it jumped out right after us and chased us for quite a while. And
so you were on a horse?
I was on a horse.
Thank God.
And chased us for quite a while. And then I had another experience. I was up hunting. My grandfather had dropped me off at the top of Thistle Slope, and he was going to go down around and cut some wood, and I was going to walk down to him. And I got out around and I climbed up the one apple tree that's out on the top of the slope there. And this is up right on the Canadian border up around Danville. And so I was getting a couple apples, and on the whole the neighbor's cow herd came rolling up to see what I was up to. And it was kind of weird, they're bawling and bellowing, kind of like something's bothering them. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird, but I was like maybe 12 or 13 at the time too. And so I jumped down out of the tree, and I had walked down around the side of the hill, and it started getting dark. So there's a tree with a bunch of branches that come up and out, and I parked myself in between two of those branches. And this one cow had kind of been following me, and I thought, I could hear something moving behind me in the brush, and I thought it was that cow. So I thought, I'm going to scare that cow. I put my gun down, and I like come around the thing, and I go, boo! And it wasn't the cow, it was a damn cougar that had snuck up behind me. And it was probably about 3 feet from me. And I was down on my hands and knees. And it did like one big and kind of mouth open and stuff. I was just like, don't look at it. Don't look at it. I looked down, I looked away, and I thought, I'm going to be dead at any moment. I can't reach my gun. You know, you're kind of, sounds bad, but you're kind of almost frozen. Like, you're like, it's up to you to do what you're going to do. Cause if I move fast, you're going to jump on me. So, and I'd always been told, you know, don't run from a cat, don't run from a cat. And so, you know, I just sat there, and the next thing I know, it kind of just stood up and kind of turned around and swished its tail. And I still remember, like, just to the side of my cheek, the end of its tail caught me. And I just thought it was the paw. I just remember in my head, I thought, I'm dead. I'm dead. Now start fighting. But it was just the end of its tail that caught me as it turned. And it went off in the woods. And I got down to Grandpa. I was shaking so bad. Like, my hands were shaking. My voice was shaking. I got down to him. I'm like, the cat, the cat, the cat. I started putting out the firewood up in the back of the Jeep. And Grandpa started, oh, yeah, let it come, let it come. I was like, but that was the first night he ever gave me a shot of R&R. I got R&R in my cocoa that night.
R&R, I'm guessing that's like whiskey or something?
Oh, I got whiskey in my cocoa.
That's crazy. You tried to jump scare a cow, and you were like 12 and you jump scared a freaking cougar.
Yep.
Did it startle? Did it even have a second of it being startled?
Kind of just sat back and just, you know, mouth open, kind of gave me like a half a hiss. Like, I think it, like, if I could jump into the cougar's mind, I'm pretty sure it's like, what the hell are you doing, lady? At the same time, I mean, I'm just thinking, oh shit, you know, I mean, like, I'm 3 feet from this cat. And I just, you know, it's funny because Joel and I were talking about that the other day, like, these experiences that you have, that I don't think it matters how old you get or what else happens. You always remember the smells, the sounds, you know, in a situation like that, you remember everything.
Yeah.
And it's a wonky thing, but yeah, I know. And that's part of my thing, like going out to Outlast, you know, everybody's like, oh, the bears and stuff. And it's like, I'm not a bear. I'm not afraid of grizzly bears. Sorry. I've had experiences with a grizzly bear. I held a guy's head together after a bear attack.
What?
And yeah. And so I'm not afraid of a grizzly bear. Bring them on.
Okay. All right. How'd the guy's head together story go?
I was 17 years old and I was working for a packing company, and I was riding a big thoroughbred horse named Dr. Dre. And I heard somebody scream. I was coming back from one of the lakes and I heard somebody scream. And
sorry, when you say packing company?
Packing horses, packing guests and stuff in, campers, things back into the high country.
Oh, okay. So like helping transport goods and people on horseback.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah. And I was probably maybe 2.5 hours from any kind of civilization help. And yeah, I heard somebody scream and I was like, and you know, I'm 17. Again, I chalk it up to being young and dumb because the first thing I could think of was I got to go see what's going on. And so I turned this horse down and I ran down to the creek, and here's this guy laying, and you know, his feet are in the creek. And it's weird because I can tell you exactly every detail of it, but the bear had him and he was dragging him away, and the lady was beating the bear off with a stick. And so she had a canister of bear spray, and this is why I refuse to ever use bear spray. Had a canister of bear spray, and she deployed it, and she didn't check the wind. I mean, in her panic, you know, she panicked. She didn't check the wind, and it came right back at her and at the horse I was riding and me. And, you know, there's nothing more attractive than when you've been OC'd and you have snot running out of your nose and you're drooling and your eyes are red and you can't see, and all you can hear is a bear growling and, you know, bones breaking, and you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm here to help.
Jesus.
And my horse took to bucking and I came off and I went and grabbed the guy, and I remember putting my hands like on top of his head, and I just remember feeling bone shards move, you know, under my fingers. And I'm trying to get, there's kind of a creek nearby, and I'm trying to get my eyes down into the creek enough that I can see again. And I hear this lady, and the bear walks away, and I picked up a rock and I like flung it at this bear, and the bear kind of like stood back, and this lady like just hit him again, and the next thing I know, she was just gone, and so was the bear. And it was just like it was kind of took me, a couple seconds to realize what had gone happened, but the bear had ended up grabbing the lady by the neck and dragging her off into the woods there. And so I believe they found her a couple days later. She had passed on. But yeah,
Jesus.
17 years old. So that's what I said. I mean, like, you don't,
Did the
you,
guy
you know,
live?
I don't know. He was alive when I believe the helicopter came in and took him. So
So while you were holding his skull together, he was still alive.
yeah, well, I was holding him together. He was still moving, but
Holy shit.
yeah. But
Jesus.
that's like what I said. I mean, like, survival wasn't a worry for me out there. Like, I've been in situations where I've had to learn to survive.
Yeah,
Where
sounds like it. I don't think I have any of those stories. Holding a man's skull together and getting bear sprayed. Yeah, not on my list of stories from my 17-year-old childhood. I played video games in my parents' basement. That's what I did.
and I grew up, like I said, I grew up in a different time. I mean, I thought it was normal for everybody my age to be, surviving out in the woods and living on a horse and stuff. I didn't realize everybody else, they had these video games and they had these lives, and, they dated people and stuff like that. And I didn't. I lived in the mountains, and I fixed up old cabins, and I lived in the cabins, and I caught, baby animals that I'd find, and I raised baby animals, that I found. I lived a great life. If I could go back in any of my life and live something over, I would do my childhood all over again, and I wouldn't change a damn thing.
Except for maybe not having to touch a broken skull. That might be maybe next that part.
Yeah, that stayed with me forever. I mean, even to this day, up there in Alaska, when the one you smelled the bear, it was like it I don't want to say PTSD, because I don't think it's like I think of PTSD as like people who have actually, like, maybe if he was my family member or something, or like
no, Don, no, you don't need to like. No, you don't need to. That's a traumatic situation. You were in a very traumatic situation that might have triggered a little PTSD, but like, you clearly deal with it better than a lot of people. I think people can get PTSD and just kind of deal with it in different ways. Some people will have it in different severities and have different ways of dealing with it. And then I think there's going to be certain amounts of people that can be experiencing certain amounts of anxiety or panic and fear and still be able to operate and function. And then there will be other people that will possibly experience a fraction of that fear or anxiety or panic, and it will be crippling for them, and they'll be unable to operate, or they'll be hysterical.
Yeah, and I don't think you can choose which type of person you are.
I don't
really
think you can either. I think it's probably really genetic. And
I do too.
There's probably a lot of portion of like how you grew up as well. Like, if you were the kind of person that was more likely to respond to those kind of feelings and you grew up in the way you did, you might develop the ability to handle those feelings a little better, right?
Yeah.
But when people don't grow up with adversity and then they're suddenly faced with an extreme amount of adversity, it's almost obvious why they don't react to it properly.
Right, yeah. Or unhealthily. Maybe in their mind they're reacting properly, but it's not healthy.
Yeah, not healthy, not helpful for the situation. Yeah. That kind of stuff.
Because I know, like, I've seen cops and stuff, working in law enforcement. I've seen cops who, like, if somebody's coded or something, they lose their shit. Like, whoa, buddy, have you ever been in a stressful situation? Because this isn't how you should handle it.
Yeah, I've heard of that too.
Yeah.
I've heard
you see people who like shoot or something without checking, their background or something like that. Hunters, you see a lot in hunting and stuff. People who they get buck fever, is I think what most people call it, and they shoot without really, thinking about what they're doing.
Yeah, that I find that weird. I don't want to comment on it because I haven't been out hunting yet, so I don't want to really.
I may have it.
What's that?
You're like, I may have it.
Yeah.
I don't know yet.
Yeah, like, I don't want to cast any shade, but I don't know. If I'm looking down my sight of a gun or a bow and I'm not certain what the hell I'm aiming at, I'm not pulling that trigger. Like, I don't want to shoot something.
And so the small bucks taste better than the big ones.
Interesting.
They're not as tough. Their meat tastes better. They're usually younger.
Okay.
So
I'll keep that in mind.
if you're going for food that goes on your table, I mean, like we grew up on wild deer, you know. I mean, like I didn't even realize there was really hunting seasons until I was about 12 years old.
Huh. You guys just kind of killed whatever, whenever.
Well, you know,
yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do, right?
You survive.
So
that's it.
So you had what, 2 or 3 nights without sleeping bags?
We had 3.
Yeah. And did you sleep at all?
Yes, we did. The last night, oh my gosh, we found ourselves a bag out there. It was like a grain bag that they must have used in one of the drops. And we like confiscated it and we turned it into a sleeping bag. And it was actually, the problem is like Joel and I together, it was like we'd sleep shoulder to shoulder, and then we'd be like, turn. And then we'd just sleep like hip to hip. And then we'd be like, turn.
That's so funny. So you guys slept together in a giant like burlap sack, basically.
It was like a big, like, it was just a big grain bag is what it looked like. But yeah, I think it was from one of the drops, like maybe even the first drop.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had taken as much as we could, and our team had gotten all the twine, and we had gotten everything we could out of that first drop, because they said, you know, kind of grab stuff, and so we grabbed twine and everything else. And so
nice. That's awesome. Do you think, if you look back on when you and Joel finally called it quits, do you ever wish you had have taken the chance with Javier and not bailed on him?
Unfortunately, we had said we were going to quit on our side after we heard a few things over the radio. So we had said we were out. We said this isn't what we signed up for. And then we went ahead and rafted over to Javier's side. And he had talked us into staying. And we actually said, well, if you guys don't mind, we'll go ahead and stay. And they said, well, by rights, you guys kind of said you were going to leave. And so...
Really?
Yeah. So we had told Javier, we're like, let's go wreck your fort and we'll all go to town and have a burger. So Javier's like, okay, let's go. So I was like, no, guys, you can't do this. Stop.
So Javier, first of all, first question is, what did you hear over what radio?
I'm probably not allowed to talk about what we heard over the radios, but there was just some stuff going on over the radios with Jill and stuff that we didn't like, and it wasn't something that should have happened out there. So we're like, nope, we're gone. This isn't what I signed up for. I mean, like,
stuff that's not shown on camera.
Yeah. So Javier got the short stick. Poor Javier. I mean, like, all I can say is, like, it made me so mad sitting on my side of the river where I couldn't go over and help him. I literally grabbed the rubber arrow. I was like, just let me put an arrow in her. Like, just let me shoot her. If there's no rules at all, allow me to shoot her. Like, it would do the world a big favor. And they're like, do not knock an arrow. And I was like, I won't use a broadhead. I'll use a rubber arrow. Just sting.
So,
but
she was interacting with Javier in a way that is not shown on camera.
It's horrible. She's yeah. Everything that happened up there shouldn't have happened. I mean, like, she should have never been able to go into Javier's camp. She should have never been able to take stuff. She should have never been in Javier's camp. It should have been a rule after our stuff that they couldn't go into camps after that. That rule should have been hard and fast, because, like, we came into the game with certain things, like the gloves, the socks. Those were supposed to be, like, always part of your survival gear. I survived 3 nights without my gloves and socks.
Yeah.
You know, we became survivalists is what we really became. But, you know, if you look at some of these shelters and stuff, it just, I don't know. If I was outside looking in on this show, I would have some problems with some of the things I see in the background on some of these shows. I think it's with every show, though. You even see it, like, on Survivor and stuff. You know, you see things in the background that you're like, wait a minute, they don't show how they got those. Like, why aren't you showing us how they get those?
So there was some stuff that you guys got that wasn't, like, through challenges?
Well, like, the sleeping bags were dropped.
Yeah, day 4.
Yeah. But they don't really talk about the dropping of the sleeping bags and stuff
No.
like that. Just like they don't talk about the dropping of the fishing gear and stuff like that. I mean, like, there's a lot of things you don't get to see. You don't get to see, I think, like, we found a frying pan in an old camp. And so, I was scavenging. My thing is I scavenged. I found every old camp I could out there and I scavenged everything I could. But, like the stove, they don't show the stove in Charlie Camp, how they got that. There's just some things showing up in the thing. Like, they don't talk about how they got the net. I think Javier finally talked about how he got the net. But, it's things like that you just are like, as watching the show, like, my husband watched it with me and he's like, where the heck did that come from? Where the heck did that come from? Why aren't we showing, like, why aren't these things popping up?
Right. I mean, I feel like they're kind of limited to how much screen time they have, right? And then when they're given so much
8,000 hours of stuff too.
Yeah, and when they're given just an abundance of chaos and drama, you got to cut that into it, right? Like,
yeah.
So
it wasn't as big of a part of it though.
I totally agree with you, especially as a big fan of the Alone show, because that's zero drama because they're literally alone.
I know. And it's all on survival skills.
Yes. Have you considered going on that show?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Are you going to see if you can get on the next season or anything like that?
I've put an application in.
Awesome. That's so cool because Javier said he would want to do it too. I think it sounds like there's a lot of Outlast participants that would like to go on that show. It would be really cool to have the next.
And I think there's quite a few of us that actually have real survival skills that would actually do well.
I think so too.
And I honestly think Alone, I mean, I got along really well with Joel.
Mm-hmm.
And given the chance, I think Javier and I would have worked really well together. And actually, I got along great with Seth and Angie and Nick. I never had any issues with them whatsoever. Brian, I liked Brian from the moment I met him. And of course, you're being told, out there, some of these people, you only get to see them for maybe 5 minutes. So you don't know too much about them.
Mm-hmm.
So everything you're being told about them is being told to you by other people. Like, Paul told me more about Angie. I didn't get to meet Angie until I think probably the end of the second week, maybe. And, Paul was telling me stuff about Angie and, it's like, what are you talking about? She's cool. So, and maybe it was just gameplay, to get me not talking to the other team. I don't know. But yeah, Angie was a blast. Seth, I got along with Seth. I met him actually when my airplane landed in Seattle. I picked Seth out in the airport and figured that he was one of them. I had all these people picked out on the airplane heading to Alaska.
That's funny. So the interaction with Javier then, when you and Joel, Joel was out on the raft, you were still on your side and you were like, we're done. And then you get over there and then Javier is like, okay, listen, we'll go get the sleeping bags. And he genuinely talked you guys into staying successfully.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys were both like, all right, fine, you're right.
Yeah, we would 100% stayed with Javier. That's what we said there. And
but production was like, right, no, you guys said it.
Yeah, we did. And we did. They clarified on the other side.
But the rule was you were out when you shot your flare gun, not when you said I'm done. You guys hadn't shot your flare guns yet. You should have pulled out the flare gun and been like, you see this? You see this? Did I shoot this? No, didn't think so. So I'm going to go hang out with Javier and you're going to go back to doing your job.
We tried this.
It's horseshit. So horseshit. I mean, I'm happy with how the show ended up because the Demon Squad didn't win. So that's nice. But I really, really wanted to see you and Joel with Javier and see what you guys could have done. I think we
could have been unstoppable, honestly, because I think we all had really good skills and we all realized that you have to work as a group out there to survive. And you do have to, I mean, I think I heard Javier say it too. You got to do the bare minimum to survive.
Mm-hmm.
You survive, that was what Joel and I were doing. We were like, we got to save our energy. We got to save our calories. We got to eat. We'd go out every morning and graze along the banks. Joel and I we would go out together. We would take our cups. We had little tin cups that you'd get water in. And we'd go out and get our water and we'd drink 3-4 cups of water in the morning. And then we'd go graze. And I mean, that's basically, I don't know any other word for it. We'd be eating, seaweed. We'd be eating sea asparagus. We'd be eating all sorts of stuff that we could find. And we'd graze until we were full, and then we'd come back and drink a couple more cups of water, and then we would go about our daily chores.
What I find so interesting with that is like you have these skills of identifying these things that you can eat, and I don't have any of that. And like watching the Alone show, I learned you could eat plantain, and I was looking around on my lawn at home, and I was like, oh hey, that's plantain, I can eat that. Dandelion, I can eat dandelion. Like
Dandelion, you can do anything with a dandelion. Same way, like I made a bark crackers out there. So I took a bunch of bark and dried it out and crushed it down into flour and made crackers. And so they weren't really good, but you could have survived off of them.
I think there was a season of Alone where a guy couldn't find any food, and so he ate bark because it was like the only thing he could find, but he ate way too much of it and got like super constipated.
And my thing is, I think what's the Australian guy in the one movie, Crocodile Dundee? He's like, well, you can live on it, but it tastes like shit. That was kind of like the bark crackers. You can live on them, but they taste like shit.
Yeah, that's fair. So how did you, when you were rewatching it, how did you feel about the outrun challenge at the end of the show?
I thought it was stupid.
Yeah? Why did you think that was stupid?
Because it seemed like, to me, that's not what I was thinking. I wasn't explained. I thought we were supposed to outlast each other. So I actually thought we were supposed to be out there until people were gone. So that's the way I went into it. If I was out there and they would have handed me that and said, now we're going to run for a challenge, I would have been like, this is bullshit.
Mm-hmm. So you would have been pissed off if you were of the last two teams.
I would have, because I was like, I thought you were supposed to outlast each other, but maybe they were finding that they had too many amenities, too many comforts. I mean, that's kind of like with the sleeping bags, you can survive out there forever if you have fire and a sleeping bag and a source of food.
Yeah, but I think the problem is a source of food, right? I think when I was talking to Paul, he was saying that their team had like a month and a half of food, that they were going to be okay. Whereas he was pretty sure, and I haven't talked to Team Alpha yet, but excuse me, he was pretty sure.
Like they went rotten.
Yeah.
If you look in the picture, like I don't think they saved their fish.
No, I think he was saying that. I think it was Javier was saying that the fish swim up there to like lay their eggs or fertilize or something, and then they just die.
It's long. That fish is already dying.
Yeah.
So like those coho salmon, I mean, like I was told that they probably weren't biting very many hooks at that point when their nose gets so extended. They're probably more snagging them than anything. Huh. And because one of my friends here locally, he actually grew up on that island. And so he said, like, yeah, he's like, once those coho salmon, those nose start getting like that, they're not really good eating anymore. So, I mean, the trout and stuff, you could live off that trout, all winter long.
Smoke it and preserve it. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like they probably would have come to like outlasting Team Alpha. I'm sure they would have eventually. And I don't know, the result was the same in the end, right? When they ended up doing the outrun. I'll be interested to get Jill's take on it if I ever actually get her on. But
the funny thing is, too, if you look at it, I mean, you got to go back and look at all the weight that everybody lost. I think Nick fared fairly well. I think Seth did okay. I lost 24 pounds, which is pretty good. I mean, I gained weight to go on. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, most people did.
Yeah. Javier didn't lose a ton of weight. You can tell the people who were thriving versus just surviving.
Yeah, Javier was saying that him and Brian were good. He's like, me and Brian were hanging out, we were chilling, we were well fed. Yeah.
And that's kind of Joel and I. We're like, we can sit here and survive forever because we've got water, we've got food sources, we got fire. Like, and once we got that bag, we were good because we were like, maybe Javier should come over here. But had we known, maybe like hindsight, if we could have done something different, we would have convinced him to come to us instead of us to him.
Yeah, I think he was saying that one of the reasons why he wanted you guys on his side was because you had like more access to mussels or something like that. Like it was easier to get food on that side.
And he had a really nice fort.
Yeah.
He was prepared. Like if we were going to go into the winter, we didn't know at that point what we were supposed to do. I mean, we were told we could be out there until the end of November.
I find it hilarious that you called it a fort. It's just such a child way of saying. It's just
They
so
were
funny. Yeah, I mean, it's totally a fort. It's true. It's hilarious. People are like shelter and survival situations or whatever, and you're like, you had a cool fort. I love it. You guys are building with pillows and blankets. It's great.
we may have grown up building forts in the mountains.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
Shelter was like when it snowed, you built a shelter. These were forts.
Yeah, when it comes to that outrun challenge, I mean, it's really the same thing at the end of the day because your ability to outrun is based on how well fed you were up to that point, right? And like how much energy you can output, how well you can perform cognitively to be able to navigate, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think that showed in the result at the end.
Definitely. But I do wonder, like, if you had given them 2 more weeks or another week,
Mm-hmm.
how they would have performed, if they would have been, if the girls would have had enough food. I mean, Jill's a pretty good scavenger. I will say that about her. She's pretty good at foraging and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed that when I first met her. She's always, she's always touching plants to her lips, and she's always, she seems to always be on top of things. I noticed that when I very first met her. But
So what are these? What else were you talking about? I think you were talking about like behind the scenes stuff that went down.
just some of those kind of things, just some of the things that people don't get to see that happens behind the scenes, those kind of things. Like when we were in there, and there was a lot of stuff going on. I mean, you have Charlie team on one side, you have Alpha team down in their thing, you have Javier and Joel and I over here, you have production everywhere. It was crazy. That day there was so much going on behind the scenes that you don't get to see. I mean, there were conversations about conversations about conversations, and there were, bear guards. When Joel and I said we're gone, we're not going to play this game, we had bear guards crying and giving us hugs, before we left. And, it was really a lot of fun because we did get to know our bear guards. I mean, you do get to know who those people are,
Mm-hmm.
And so there was just a lot of stuff behind the scenes that nobody gets to see that, I couldn't sum it up for you any more than saying there was camaraderie built between production, between your cameraman. Like, we built a really good rapport with our cameraman. He was a neat guy, amazingly talented guy. But, so as we're saying we're gone, there's tears from this side, and there's, Angie over here, when I go to, and I'm saying, take our stuff, take this from our camp, and I'm handing this to Angie, and, you're getting hugs from Angie and hugs from Seth. And, you don't get to see the camaraderie that actually was built behind the scene.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of stuff behind the scenes that went on that day, and it was a hectic day. And, I don't think they let me shoot my flare because I think they knew I would have pointed it towards Alpha Camp.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
I have a feisty attitude. What can I say?
Yeah, I can gather that much. That's apparent. When it comes to the rewatching and Justin being taken on by Charlie Camp, when it was like right near the end, and then shortly after they had that whole discussion and they found out that Justin cut up the tarps and they were like, oh no, we draw the line there. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, my first thing was I actually cheered for Justin ripping up those tarps. I literally was like, hell yeah, cut them all. I was like, Maxine, too. That was the first time during the whole show I was literally cheering for Justin. Plus, I felt kind of bad for the guy. Like, he just told them on national TV that he shit himself. And they're like, it's like, the guy, do you think a guy is going to say that if, like, it's not real?
Yeah.
I mean, you just totally like blew over the fact that this just happened to him. I mean, like, at least show a little bit of sympathy. Like, dude, go clean yourself or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and he's like, I had to put on Lee's underwear. I mean, like, now you're wearing some guy's underwear that, like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It did not seem like a story that was made up. It's something that's like, obviously nobody's going to admit to that unless it's genuinely happening. And in addition to that, it totally adds up with what you and Javier are saying about that co-host Salmon being bad.
Yeah. And then the poor guy, so he does that, and then they're still they're attacking him. I mean, like, at that point, I was Team Justin, and I'm the one that, like, wrote on the rock, "Justice for Justin," you know? So I'm like, now I'm Team Justin, you know, at the very end, and I'm like, I actually kind of hoped they were going to keep him, honestly, at that point. And I know that sounds really bad because he stole our sleeping bags, but at that point, I actually was like, it was his camp at that point. I mean, what's the difference from him taking our sleeping bags and, you know, leaving us out there to die in a real survival situation, or cutting up a tarp?
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't their sleeping bags. He just cut up a tarp. You can live without a tarp. So,
well, I think that's a really good point. And that's something that I thought about, was that they were like, they knew that Justin stole yours and Joel's sleeping bags. And they were like, that's fine. We're going to take you on. And then they find out that he cuts up the tarp, and they're like, oh no, we draw the line there. And I'm kind of like, what the hell's the difference between those two things?
There's nothing.
No. And then the other thing that really confused me was at the very beginning, they very clearly stated, although they didn't have a lot of rules on this show, one of the rules they said was there will be no voting off. And they had already taken him on and accepted him on their team. So to then say, no, you got to go, seems kind of like bullshit that they were even allowed to do that at all.
Yeah, I kind of agree there. Like, I wonder if maybe, I mean, like, I'm totally guessing here, but I wonder if maybe production didn't come in or something and say, like, hey, you wrecked, maybe they built a rule or something about it after we left, and after, you know, wrecking other people's sports, maybe something was made there and it was going to be handed down to the whole team or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was the only thing I could go with, because I'm like, you know, I don't know. At that point, you convinced Justin across. You weren't going to, it wasn't like you were going to, you weren't going to gain anything getting rid of him, except for to get rid of him. So, I mean, and, you know, we would have taken him on when we were there. We talked about it. I mean, like, if we would have taken Justin on, whatever he did before was just like, you kind of washed away. As long as you know you're Team Delta now, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, we don't play by those rules.
Yeah, that would have been super interesting. Like you and Joel and Javier and Justin getting on a team, and then you guys matched up against Seth and Nick and Paul and Angie. Like,
yeah. Well, the thing with Javier is a strong guy. I mean, that man is like, you know, he's a big guy.
He's a monster.
And Justin he's like black belt. He's a wiry little guy. I don't think you would have been able to get him to quit. You know, I think he would have been all heart. And I think that's why I appreciate him so much, you know, even though, you know, yes, he stole our sleeping bags, but it was a gameplay. And you know what? In the game, it was a gameplay. Was it dirty? Yep. Would I have done it? No. But, you know, it is what it is.
So what I find so fascinating is, like, you clearly, very few people have so far out of this have come out with too much of a positive outlook on Jill and her behavior and her character. And so far with our conversation, I feel like it's safe to say that your perspective lines up with that at least a little bit. And yet Justin was the one, and correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but Justin was the one that stole your sleeping bags. And you're just got nothing but nice things to say about Justin. And so I just, can you elaborate on that for me?
Okay, so here's my thought. Okay, so we're out there, we're playing a game. Everybody is out of their element. You're away from your family. You're a different version of yourself. When I went out there to survive, I put every other thought process out of my mind. I put myself into survival mode. It was the only way you can take away that easy out, you know, and you say, doesn't matter. I'm going to survive. 110%. I'm going to win this game. That's me telling myself, you know, we can do this, Don. You know, things suck. You want to you want to walk off into the woods and just sit down and bawl because you missed your daughter, you missed your home, you missed this, you missed that. But if it was a plane crash, if it was a, you know, boat wreck, if it was survival, you have to put yourself in that situation. Those games can't be real for people. And if you don't put yourself in those situations, So I put myself in that situation. I put myself in that real survival situation. Like I was out there to survive. And Joel and I talked about that many, many nights. And so I think Justin, I'm talking to him afterwards because I've reached out and I've talked to Justin afterwards, and I've talked to Amber afterwards, and I've even talked to Jill. But the thing with Justin is exactly who he tells you he is. There's no bullshit. He says, I stole your sleeping bags. Was it a dirty mood? Yep, but I did it. And I mean, like, I can appreciate that. I can honestly appreciate a person that just walks up and says, sorry, it was a game. I was trying to get rid of you guys. You guys were the strong team. They didn't know that we had lost Paul, but, what they thought is we were still 3 strong. And we were in their heads because within a half an hour, we had our fire started. Within, we kept our fire started every single day. We kept our fire started all through the night for the first little while. We were in their heads and we didn't even know it. So, and okay, maybe there was a little bit of play there that we were in their heads because we did get our fire going that fast and we knew we were going to. But, I don't have anything bad to say about Justin just because Justin does own up for what he did. He says 100%, this was a game. I was playing a game strategic move at that point.
So
but
I want to.
Outside the game, he's been awesome.
So you're saying outside the game, he's been awesome as well.
Yeah, and stuff. He's been a stand-up guy outside the game. He's been funny. He's been, he takes everything in stride.
So allow me to kind of summarize that a bit, if you would. Is it safe to say that Justin's humility, as in his ability to take ownership for his actions, and his honesty, although like stealing it doesn't sound like is dishonest, but he's at least honest with his dishonest actions.
I think there's some sense there, yeah.
Right, and that although stealing seems like something that you wouldn't classify as integrity, he at least has the integrity to admit to his actions being less than integral.
In a roundabout way, you hit it.
Right? It's weird, but you're kind of laying out these behaviors and these acknowledgments of these behaviors to be what gives him the positive quality. It's that he has done these things that some people might frown upon, but he's like, yeah, I did that. And yeah, that was the play and it was a game and yeah, it wasn't good, but that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to win. And so that is where the positive perspective about his character comes, is from the honesty about his dishonesty.
Yes. As crazy as that sounds, I mean, you have to take it for what it is. But then you have Jill going over here. I didn't say cut your throats. I didn't want your throats cut. I was talking about the fish. I didn't want your throats cut, and it's like, no, honey, I went back and rewatched it. That's what you, sorry.
Well, that's okay.
And so it's like, no, honey, that's what you said. And it wasn't taken out of context. And then, we're paid actresses. No, we're not paid actresses. I mean, like, I didn't go, hey, let's go with a writer's guild or an acting guild. I'm not a paid actress. I went out there. I applied for a reality TV show. Yes, it is reality TV, but, it's still, there has to be, you are either you or you're not you. And, and when you hit the real world, you're either going to own up to who you were or you're going to lie about it. And I think, if for Amber's kind of, I talked to Amber a few times and I think she's just like, oh yeah, this was fun. This was exciting, blah, 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 blah. But, and then out of the blue, I get hit with Jill, and it's like, oh, you got to get on the bandwagon. I'm like, sweetie, I don't want on any wagon you're driving.
So what is it about Amber? If we just pin down what it is about Justin that is so likable, what is it about Amber that's so dislikable? Is it this flip-flopping back and forth where she says something and then says something different?
Amber or Jill?
Jill.
Okay. I think with Jill is I tried to give her a chance that this was a TV persona that she was playing, but it's gone to the point that it's like, now like you either tell it the way I tell it or you're wrong. I've given you a chance to jump on the bandwagon. Now you don't want on it. And then what was her comment? Bye, Felicia. And I'm like, sweetie, I don't want on any bandwagon you're driving. And she's like, she said, I'm a two-faced person because I won't get on the bandwagon with her.
So was this
And
like a group chat or what was?
no, this was on on one of her posts,
Oh, okay.
on Instagram or something. I blocked her. I
Okay.
don't need that.
Well, she doesn't
Hell,
even
I
have
don't.
comments enabled on anything anymore. So,
That's the other thing. It's like if you're gonna do something, Justin has his commenting. People come back at him, and he like post him, and he's like, "All my haters," and I'm like, you know what? How can you hate somebody who just like
who wears
he
it?
he is who he is? Like he's like, "Yep, I did that," but like I don't know. If you ask me, did you and Paul get in an argument? Yes. We didn't see eye to eye. Are we different people? Yes. Are we completely butted heads out there a few times? Yep. Do I have partial blame? Yep. Do I have all the blame? No. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you straightforward. Were we wrong about Charlie Camp stealing our bags? Yep. Were we pissed at Justin for stealing our bags? Yep. But you know what? It was a game at that point. And it wasn't a game where we were sitting. I mean, when your sleeping bags are gone and you're going hypothermic, it's not a game.
Yeah, no, it's not. Because like that's something that I thought about was them taking your sleeping bags in nighttime and you're in Alaska. I'm like, yeah, okay, it's a game, but at the same time, like it's not like they have a hospital right next door. Like you guys are a duration out from serious health care,
And
right?
it sucked. I will tell you, it sucked. Like, I literally went as close to hypothermic as you could probably get that one night without, I mean, like, if it wasn't for Joel, and I probably would have. I was so cold the next morning. Like, I still was shaking. By the time the sun started coming up, I couldn't stop shaking. So Joel got a fire started, like just roaring, so I could get some hot water in me. I was like, I have to get hot water. I have to heat it up. I got to get my core warmed up. So I'm sitting there, and I finally get a cup boiling, and I go to pick it up, and I'm shaking so bad I shook the whole cup, and the water put out my fire.
Oh,
I just broke down. I literally just broke down in tears. I was just like, they probably have footage of me literally just like my hands just crying as hard as I can. I'm shaking and just like the lowest of the low moment out there, But you kind of like, we got out of there, and I said, okay, I've had my pity party. Let's suck it up and let's go.
mm-hmm.
And that's what we did. And we left on our own 2 feet. We left because we chose not to play the game the way it was being played anymore. And I really have no regrets. I do feel bad about not staying with Javier, just because he lost out his chance because we decided to take the road we took. So I wish they would have kept him on Charlie team, or at least brought him on. That would have been a good thing, but
Yeah, kind of is what it is. I think that's a perfect note to wrap up on. We're kind of coming up on 2 hours here. This has been awesome. Yeah, I know it flies, right? When you're having fun conversation, at least. Yeah, I wish you guys had have gotten on with Javier and stuff too. That would have been really cool. And seeing the three of you get it done, maybe pick up Justin.
And Joel and I have some stuff in the works. We have, I don't know if you can plug it or not, but we actually have a spot fund going on right now.
Okay.
Called Buy Me a Shot of Whiskey. And so it's basically just to fund our adventures and filming that we're going to start doing.
That you and Joel are going to start doing.
Yep.
Nice.
So
you guys are going to do like a YouTube channel?
We don't know yet. We're working on whether it's going to be YouTube or what we're going to do with it yet. But yeah, we're going to start doing some stuff. Hopefully we can jump Javier in and he can join us on a few of them.
Yeah, well, I think Javier is going and he's taking Brian on a bike ride.
Yes.
Because Javier does some of his distance rides, and him and Brian are going to go on one, and they're going to video it and put it up on YouTube. So that'd be pretty cool.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you want to plug?
No, that's pretty much it. They can follow me. I'm mostly on Instagram right now. I've jumped onto Instagram. My 18-year-old showed me Instagram.
That's good.
And that's basically the best way to find me right now. And that's at author Don Nelson.
Okay. Actually, before you go, I do have one question that I try to ask everyone. If you imagine the human consciousness as a little man inside your brain looking at a computer screen, right? And people put sticky notes on their laptop to remind them of things. If you could write something on a sticky note, and that sticky note would appear in the consciousness of all people in the world all at once, what would you write on that sticky note?
Be kind.
Be kind. Good choice. Yeah, or at least
I work in healthcare.
or at least be honest if you're gonna not be kind. Right? That's good. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I
Yeah.
mean, we got so wrung out in time, but I totally lost track of it.
No, I loved it. Like I honestly prefer episodes to go at least 2 hours because I mean we got through like a full whole story, right? We got through some real stuff rather than just little bits and pieces. Hey, thanks, bye, see you later.
Well, and I think Outlast is such a small part of who the contestants really are.
Exactly.
I mean, nobody knows what we've been through, what our lives are like, I mean, they don't know. I've tried to go on and tell people a little bit more about me, but I'm also not really a very public person.
Mhm.
So, I stick to myself, and I work at a hospital. So, life gets busy, and it's hard to bring people into your life, because when you open up your life for other people to come into, usually it also opens them up to see flaws.
Mhm.
And my whole right arm is complete scars. So yeah, I don't usually let a lot of people very close to me.
What do you mean your right arm is complete scars?
Jesus.
Jesus.
I'm complete scars from an accident that I had while working. And so yeah, it eats away my flesh all the way down to the bone and tendons and stuff sometimes. So yeah, I mean, I've gone 8 years dealing with that, and you kind of learn. I used to be a really outgoing person, back when I was really pushing books and stuff. And when I got injured, you just learn that people are different. People see somebody with an injury, or they see somebody with something that they think is gross looking, and they steer away from it. They shy off of it. I get a lot of people that say, "Oh, you shouldn't be here." I've been kicked out of restaurants before for scars on my arms. They're open, and they're open sores, but they're covered with the stuff I have to cover them with, but they're clear. And people are like, "You're going to have to leave." People don't like the looks of your hand. People don't like the looks of your, and it's like, I've been in a cast for almost 8 months. This is the first time I've got a cast off, and you're kicking me out of a restaurant because I actually am out eating now. And I'm like, even Barbie has seams. So.
Okay, well, maybe we're not wrapping this up. What the hell is going on with your arm? Had you got like a flesh-eating disease or what?
So I was injured while I was working at the prison, and it pulled my wrist apart. And so a dirty instrument was used when they did the surgery, and it gave me a disease under my skin that eats my flesh away.
So it's a flesh-eating disease.
Yeah. So
and this was from the surgeon.
Yeah. So anytime I have an injury to my arm or something that'll open it up deep, it eats down. It's actually, it's called pyoderma gangrenosum. And so it eats down to bone, flesh. You don't know if it's going to stop eating. So, yeah.
So how does that get resolved?
It doesn't. It's something I'll live with forever. But this is another thing that people don't realize that I was living with out there. I'm deathly allergic to nylon on this side from where my surgeries were. So nylon made me break out. So I had actually a breakout out there that nobody really gets to know about, because I didn't want to get sent off the island. But yeah, so I had a breakout, and you'll see, I don't know if you can see, this is one breakout that ate down.
Yeah.
So it ate all the way down.
For those of you just listening, she just showed kind of on her right bicep a little, maybe a quarter size scar.
Yep. So that one ate all the way down, so you can see tendons and stuff. So yeah, it's nylon, and they gave me nylon sleeping bag out there. So I had to change it for this other sleeping bag because I couldn't touch the nylon. So if you could have seen, because see, I don't have movement to my wrist.
So I have your wrist can't extend or flex?
Yeah, I have a little bit of back, but I have no down at all. And I don't have a lot of, I have a little bit of feeling in this finger, but otherwise I have no feeling in my hand.
So for people just listening, she's referencing her index finger. She's got a little bit of feeling, but not much other feeling in your hand at all.
Yeah. So when it came to hunting and stuff, I'm a very avid hunter, but Paul wanted to hunt. It was kind of it was best to let him hunt. I'm a very avid trapper. I've trapped my whole entire life. I run 30 snare trap lines and conibar traps all winter long for coyotes and deprivation. But you kind of have to stand back. I don't think people realize, like, when they're talking about how much we butted heads, I don't think they realize how much give and take there actually was between Paul and I and a lot of the things. And that's why I do respect him in a lot of that, because there was a lot of give and take out there in the very beginning, in the first few weeks.
I honestly think, because you've talked about talking to so many different participants post show, and I believe Paul said that you were the only one that he hadn't heard from. And I really think that you guys should get in touch, because neither of you have anything bad to say about each other. When you're not in a situation where you're in a camp side by side and you're like trying to survive together, I think you guys might be able to squash the beef and like let bygones be bygones and have a civil conversation.
Well, and honestly, I kind of just left it up to him. I figured if he wanted to reach out, because, you know, he was upset with me when, and I think he thought I was upset with him. And in the show, when we left, I may not have been the nicest when I walked out. I might have said, get rid of Paul and keep Javier. Like I said, I may be responsible partly.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, maybe you should reach out to Paul and have a conversation with him and see how that goes, just to kind of level the playing field, because you guys are both wonderful people. I've enjoyed the conversation with both of you immensely. So this, how much, actually, this is my personal trainer coming out, and I really like, mobility is like my thing. So how much like stretching and movement stuff have you been doing with that wrist?
For 8 years, I did physical therapy like 3 to 4 times a week. And then they put me in some kind of machine that forced it down, but it still wouldn't force it. So then they were going to go in and they were going to fuse my wrist at one point, but I still have some backwards movement, so I don't want to fuse it.
Yeah. Don't do any of that stuff. Don't fuse it.
No. So occasionally, like, it's just scar tissue holding it up. That's all it is. So occasionally it'll break, because they had to cut off the whole top of my hand right here. And put
the top of the back of her forearm. She's referencing.
And they put a wound vac on and grew all that skin back.
Wow, that's crazy.
So yeah.
Jesus. Okay. Well,
so that's why I think you'll see like an interview or something where I talk about, you know, like, this was after my surgery in the end of March, beginning April of that year. That was like my first real comeback. Like, that was the first thing I've ever really done in like 10 years or so since I was injured. So that was like me proving to myself that I was still just as tough as I ever was. So
yeah, I think you proved that. Yeah, that's awesome. Good for
you.
Now
I want to go survive out in the wilderness. Now I'm like, can somebody just drop me off somewhere?
Well, you applied for a loan, so hopefully they take you on.
I know. I might have to like apply for Survivor too. Not that I know really want to do another social one.
Yeah,
but
I was gonna say that's like another social bullshit show.
And I'd probably get kicked off. He'd probably be like, no, you're not allowed to talk anymore.
You'd be trying to shoot people with rubber arrows and shit. Okay.
Just me. What can I say?
Do you have any final words for our listener?
No, not really. It's been great, guys, and it's thanks for staying in here and listening to us, and I really appreciate. And yeah, reach out anytime. I got way more stories I can tell you about survival.
I believe it. That's awesome. I really appreciate your time, Dawn. Thank you so much. Hey, you listening to this right now. You, yes, you. I appreciate that you've listened to it this far. That's awesome. And that means that you at least enjoyed it, or else you would have stopped it and went and done something else. And it would be really cool if you could share it with someone. I'm sure you know somebody that might also enjoy it. So just, hit the little share button, and there'll be like a link you can copy, and you can just text it to your BFF Jill. I don't know if you know a Jill. I don't know, just somebody. Just share it with one person, and I will be forever grateful. Thank you. Have a great day.